Greetings, YouTube viewers and fellow Final Fantasy fans. This is Final Fantasy Fan 012, and welcome to another stream on my channel. This time, doing the very first episode of Comic Studies. This time, we're actually on the very first episode of Comic Studies. I will be doing Justice League: The World's Greatest Superheroes, and joining with me is Wolf 10 Media over here from the UN Spacey.
Good evening.
And so now I know it sounds strange. Oh, hey Twelday, how you doing? How you doing, Twelday? Now I know it would be a bit weird for me, so it'd be like, hey, why are you talking about comic books when you're a Final Fantasy channel? I mean, well, mainly because I just wanted to talk about superhero comics, um, because that's been something I've been passionate about ever since I was a kid. Mainly because I was a massive Spider-Man fan, but then I became more of a DC fan a lot later since I was in early high school, probably since junior high. Um, so then I got into DC Comics, and thanks to Professor Geek, I became a fan of DC Comics, and by starting to read Superman. But this wasn't actually my first one, though. Actually, so so yeah, we're actually gonna go in order from the this anthology, this DC anthology by Paul Dini and Alex Ross. So this episode in this case is Superman: Peace on Earth. So we'll go in order. We'll go in order from this book series. So it'll be Superman: Peace on Earth for this episode. Then next week will be Batman: War on Crime. Then Shazam: Power of Hope, Wonder Woman: Spirit of Truth, and Justice League: Liberty and Justice.
Hmm.
And so let's see what else. Dang.
Take your time. You got this.
So yeah, this is so a little bit of history on this book. This book is actually on. It was straight after the success of Kingdom Come. So this is pretty much I think the third time when Alex Ross was doing art for comics, because the first time was the Marvels, then it was Kingdom Come, and then it's this one. And so then he worked with Paul Dini for this. So Paul Dini is the writer for a lot of the animated shows for DC Comics, the DC animated universe. And so they both agreed to do an anthology series on many of the heroes in the Justice League, and Alex Ross really wanted what he wanted to do first, naturally, was Superman, which leads us to here. So before we get into the story, Wolf 10, what what is your what is your knowledge about, at least on this story, or at least on this story of this anthology?
I only know the comic book that preceded it, Kingdom Come,
Yeah,
and even then I'm pretty vague on that one because I only read Kingdom Come once,
only once.
only once. Library
Wow.
checkout.
Oh, right. Um, and oh, and also a quick question before we get into the story. What was your just a fun question? What was your what was your first time that you actually what was your first experience knowing about Superman, really? Like, what was your first experience knowing about Superman?
Fleischer animation.
Yeah.
Before we got into the DCAU, even well, long before we even got Christopher Reeve's Superman.
Yeah. Are you talking about the early Warner Bros. Animation pictures that they used, which they did the same thing with the Looney Tunes cartoons?
Yep.
Mm,
Well,
that one.
Fleischer
Mm,
also did the Popeye shows as well.
that one. Yeah. Because I've actually seen I think I've seen one of these episodes of that show. It was in the DC animated DVD collection that I have over there, and it's where they showed some of the best episodes of some DC animated shows. It's anything from animated shows of DC Comics, whether it's the DCAU, um, the Super Friends cartoon, Batman Brave and the Bold, Young Justice, anything.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's all DC animated shows. And so now we will do Superman Peace on Earth. Starting here, actually. So this is the thing that we actually notice, that this is always going to be something that's always at the beginning of every story of this Justice League anthology, is that with uh, it always begins with this page of
Oh,
narration
nice.
by a certain character, and like in this case of Superman Peace on Earth, it's Superman himself. Like, and we do get some knowledge about the characters themselves too. So it's told in the first person, and so then it's narrated this way: the planet Krypton was doomed. Just before its destruction, a scientist placed his only son in a small rocket and sent him to safety. I was that child. The rocket landed on Earth, where I was founded, where I was found by a kindly couple, the Kents. They named me Clark and raised me as their own. Even as a boy, I knew I was different from everyone around me. Though their love and guidance, or through their love and guidance, my adoptive parents taught me how to use and understand my special gifts. And I discovered I could defy gravity. I could run faster than anything created by man. My strength was tremendous and my body invulnerable to harm. I later became a reporter, able to walk among men and be nearby when needed. In times of trouble, I am there as Superman. To fight for liberty and justice, I have sworn to protect the world that has taken this child of Krypton and embraced him as one of her own.
Hmm.
So that so yeah, this is always going to be a thing that we're always going to be seeing a lot throughout this anthology. You may have seen these on Alex Ross's Instagram if you actually follow him there.
Hmm.
The dude does amazing art. His art is absolutely amazing.
Yep.
In
That is
fact,
true.
he is actually a he is actually a pretty good storyteller too, because he knows heroes. He knows how heroes and villains are. Um, because even when he's doing some of the Marvel stuff, because Marvel would have quite the handful of anti-heroes, but it doesn't mean they're like completely flooded the market. There's just only quite the handful, because there are select few heroes that do know the true spirit of heroism, because that's what heroes are for. But
Mm-hmm.
Alex Ross already knows what his stories always always have in common is that it's a it's it's a superhero stories where heroes are heroes and villains are villains. But yet, hey, William Silva. And so this is always what makes it so good. The heroes are always shown in a bright light. They're always looking up. Like in the case of many of his heroes in DC Comics and Marvel Comics, they would always be looking up. The light would always be shining down onto them. Whereas he's showing
From
the
on
villains are,
high.
huh?
From on high.
Yeah. But then the villains, they're just looking down, and the light is just shining right onto their faces, showing to be a more menacing look. You okay?
Yeah. This throat's dry.
Oh, yeah.
Partial. Not too much.
Okay. Oh, sorry about that. But or actually,
No,
why am I
don't
apologizing for
apologize.
that? Yeah. Why am I apologizing? So then we begin the story of Superman: Peace on Earth, and we actually begin on Clark as a boy. We're not realized that he's Superman yet, because we're already told that he's Superman at the beginning of the narrations, and so when he's in the prologue or the preface, and it's actually a father and son moment between him and Jonathan Kent, where he's actually on the field spreading the seeds. And it actually and this is actually, we will see this throughout the story. And this is where, because Jonathan Kent, he was the entire reason why Clark became Superman. He is because he taught him, because of his humanity, those values that he has, especially from Martha Kent, they instilled those values onto him, and that's what made Clark have these values and why he decides to use his powers just for those virtues. Yeah, instilled it to those virtues and use those powers for good, and that's why he decides to be Superman. It's because of his humanity. That's what makes Superman that great
Mm-hmm.
of a hero as an aspirational hero. It's because of his humanity. Because this comes from the concept of the Übermensch, as Friedrich Nietzsche puts it, as the Übermensch, the Superman, where that actually comes from. Whereas one who actually has this tremendous amount of power, and this is what Superman is: someone with that amount of power. In fact, that's actually probably a part of his creation when they found out about this from his original creators, Joe Shuster and yeah, Jerry Siegel. And so
Right.
now, yeah, because they're now spreading the seeds, but then this is where actually um, Jonathan teaches him one part about throwing the seeds. You can't just throw them like this. You have to spread them out evenly, like scatter them out. And it says here, hmm, he used to say the same thing. Or actually, no, it's actually from this page. I still think he's actually reminiscing back to when he was back in Kansas.
Okay.
I, I still think back to the farm. I still think back to the farm. I remember the creak of the old windmill, the smell of fresh cut hay, and the warm spring wind in my hair. Most of all, I remember my father, patient and gentle as we worked the fields together. Easy does it, he say. Scatter the seeds few at a time. Don't throw them in clumps. Let them fall evenly down the rows. Give them enough space. That's the way. He knew not every seed would make it, but Paul wanted to give each one the chance to grow.
Hmm.
He used to say the same thing about people. Some blossomed the right way, while others needed a little extra care. It seems I hear my father's voice more clearly as at this time of year. So this is where and make
That's
sure
the golden time of year.
and in fact, this is where we transition to fast forward to now Clark as an adult because this is now where we see him as Superman in the costume, and he's actually bringing down a Christmas tree to Metropolis,
Oh, nice.
and he's actually and as soon as he puts down the tree, and then he puts up the decorations in a just in a flash, and he also puts the star on top, and so then because he even says it in the narration. Oh hey, we got a new guest. We got Dominic Powell here. How you doing, Dom?
I'm doing well, Final. How about yourself?
Oh, doing well. We're still at the beginning of talking about Superman Peace on Earth, and
Oh, all right, nice.
we're specifically at the um we're specifically at the when he's actually putting down the tree in Metropolis, and so then he got done putting up the decorations, and he even says that he actually feels like a kid
Nice.
again because he always Christmas is always a special time to him. That's what he always says. Because even if you look at Superman or no Justice League, was it Justice League the animated series or was it Justice League Unlimited, where he took Martian Manhunter.
It was the animated series, the Christmas special.
Yeah, where he took Martian Manhunter to visit his adopted parents
I
in
got Williams'
Smallville.
comment there.
Yeah. Oh, if I had the money, I would commission Alex Ross to make a piece that would have Superman, both Captain Marvels, Ultraman, and other characters rising up through the sky. Oh, he has done. He's even done quite a fair share of anime anime and manga too. Because there's some stuff that he's done with Ultraman. He did do some mecha like Majin Gazeto. Um, I'm not sure if he's done some Gundam as well, but he has done some he has done Ultraman and Majin Z as well, and they are really freaking cool. Because as always, Alex Ross is a legend.
Oh yeah. I mean, he earned his stripes as a he earned himself like as both an artist and writer. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he is the Norman Rockwell of comic books.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Um, and so after he got done decorating the tree, he flies away, but yet everyone's trying to get that special quote or that special photo of him because they always look up to Superman. Because when they look up at Superman, they always go look up in the when they see Superman flying, they go look up in the sky. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. Because Superman is a beacon of hope for that reason. They're always looking up in search for hope because of Superman. Superman believes in hope and he wants others to do the same, to believe in hope because he has faith in them. So then he has faith. So as long as he has faith in humanity, humanity has faith in Superman. That way they believe in hope. So then, as he's flying away, Superman then suddenly hears a scream of pain from a girl who actually collapsed. And as soon as he goes back down to try to find out what's wrong, and then he notices that she's actually light in his arms because she's starving. She's actually hungry.
Hmm.
And so then, because of that, so then he picks her up. Then she passes out from a shock because now Superman's come in to save her. So then Superman takes her to a a homeless place, a place for the homeless, and he takes her to Dr.
Be
Rebecca
right back.
Mason. You'll be all right. He takes her to Dr. Rebecca Mason, who's responsible for the retirement home, and he takes her there. And so then, he promises her that the girl would be cared for, and she would need some nourishment and actually needed some food, like nourishing broth, and prepare her for a bed because she is not only she's tired because she passed out from from a state of shock from seeing Superman, but she's also hungry because that's when Clark noticed when he picked her up when he actually noticed her pain when she was screaming in pain, or no, not screaming in pain, like a scream of pain because she was hungry. And so then now Clark goes back to his human life as being from being Clark Kent now, because now he's actually a reporter. And we actually see this quote from Charles Dickens that he actually quotes from here. It says, "I walk through when he's now Clark Kent. I walk through the bright streets bustling with life." Charles Dickens once described this season. It's actually describing the season of Christmas. Um, Charles Dickens once described this season as a time when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. And sadly, the first part that statement is often ignored, as if acknowledging the unfortunate among us would dampen the merriment of the holidays. So then, so it's pretty much almost like this commercialization, like probably like the commercialization of Christmas that a lot of people got, that a lot of people are pretty much tired of. So then, well, yeah, there's some stuff that needs to be called out on, but he still pretty much has faith in Christmas because he's always looking forward to Christmas. He's always looking forward to that. Very much his favorite holiday too. um, and so, sorry, I had to look in the private chat. Sorry if you heard me clicking, but so then, so then now, and then he wants to actually know gets a report on the girl that he rescued, and took her to the retirement home, and it's revealed that her name was Jody, and she was a runaway. Is actually, and she was a runaway. Yeah, actually, a quote from here, and Dr. Mason tells me The young woman's name is Jody. A runaway a runaway from a poor southern town. She thought there would be better opportunities in Metropolis, but when but with no job and no friends, she was reduced to begging. Malnourished, she might have died if not for Superman. So so had Superman so of course Superman would have flown pretty much would have flown away just from the crowd because a lot of stuff he even said it too in that part I forgot to mention that he for there are more important matters that he would need to deal with because he's got a lot of responsibilities. This is a common thing that with Alex Ross drawing Superman is that he's always drawn with a very determined face. Like, even though Superman, he never draws Superman smiling. Well, there would be occasions that he would, but he's always drawing Superman with a determined look because he says that Superman's got the responsibility of the world on his shoulders. Like, he's got the responsibility of the world onto him. So then, because he knows people need help, but yet there's other bigger things out there that do need his help too. But now he's not a Snyder bro. He's not one of these he's not one of these people where they just praised Zack Snyder for his work on Superman or yeah, his work on DC Comics or the DC universe or the DC extended universe. But he is because Alex Ross is a good storyteller, like we already mentioned earlier. So then, but he's always there are a few instances where Superman would smile, but he always draws Superman with a determined look because like he's almost similar to bit how he would draw Batman with a very determined look because he's never drawing Batman with like a scruff face where it's just like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because both Batman and Superman have a very determined look, which we will talk a little bit more about that
Going
once
by
we
the
get
George Reeves version of Superman, it seems.
to on his drawing of Superman.
Mm-hmm. If you look
Well,
at his design sometimes and some of the pinup art he does of Superman, it reminds me of George Reeves.
well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, I always thought he's always just trying to stay close to the comic Superman, like he's always been. But now that you mention it, yeah, you're actually kind of right. Yeah, I mean, he did draw George Reeves Superman actually
Mm-hmm.
with the pinups of the drawings of the '66 Batman and Burt Ward
Yep.
Robin with the Linda Carter's Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah. When we had a crossover movie with those guys together,
Yeah.
they would not have looked out of place at all.
Well, no, they probably never would. In fact, he did draw the Christopher Reeve Superman too.
I'm sure he did. Did you ever did you ever happen upon this one YouTube video where they had all quick aside, they had
Mhm.
all the old actors who played the superheroes of old all together in one. It
I
was really good. They did a really good edit. Yeah, Linda Carter as Wonder Woman, Alan West as Batman, Christopher Reeve as Superman. They're all together just fighting crime.
Mm,
It was-
that I'm not sure if I've seen that. I actually have a poster of that on my wall over there. It's not actually drawn by Alex Ross. I actually have a poster of that. It's where it's just Superman, Christopher Reeve Superman, Linda Carter's Wonder Woman, and Adam West's Batman, just drawn right in front of the Hall of Justice. It's just all three of them. Yeah, it's just all three of them in front of the Hall of Justice. That's the Justice League, one of the Justice League's major hideouts. Uh,
nice.
yeah, because I got this at a con. And I was dressed as Superman too when I was there when I found that. And funny enough, when I cosplayed as Superman, um, a lot of people asked for my picture of me, just of me as Superman. And
Nice.
in fact, there's a group of kids that actually huddled over. They saw me as Superman, and I actually agreed to take the picture. And because everyone loved my Superman cosplay. I went as classic Superman too,
Oh, nice.
and plus I even had the curl. I had to gel my hair for the curl, even though I couldn't do it right now.
The cowlick,
Yeah,
the
and
super
so
cowlick.
yeah, and so and so now we're at the Daily Planet, and so Clark wants to make a report on about world hunger, mostly just as an excuse to as to check see if Jody, the homeless girl that he saved, the runaway girl that he saved, was okay. And so then we're at the Daily Planet, and everyone in the Daily Planet was having a Christmas party. But then Clark just goes through the files about world hunger, and this is actually the major part of the story. What they had in mind, what Deanie and Ross had in mind when making the story, is by asking this question: if Superman were real, would he solve um, the world's problems? And we see this here in the story, specifically where it tackles world hungers, as this is a very, very serious issue, and it still is today.
Right.
And once again, we actually go back to his time back at Smallville, at his home, reminiscing, thinking about his father, and says this: I think back to my father. As a farmer, he had a natural understanding for the earth. I remember telling I remember him telling me this world is capable of providing for all creatures. Even now, with so many more people, there exists enough food for everyone. The problem, Pa used to say, is people as far back as we go, we've always had problems with sharing. Seems everyone's too busy holding on to what they've got to care how their neighbors are doing. Pa said it would take a special individual with no personal agenda to make everyone realize what the world has to offer. Someone who could put his own needs aside to help the greater good. I don't pretend to think I am that person, though I have always tried to be there for others. I look upon my powers as a gift, not mine alone, but for everyone who needs them. So, and over the years, I've helped as many people as I could. It's not my place to dictate policy for humankind, but perhaps the sight of me fighting hunger on a global scale would inspire others to take action in their own ways. It's certainly an example worth setting. So, Clark is now trying to solve, because of this, Clark is now setting, is now wanting to solve world hunger. So then he tries to get every, oh no, not yet, that doesn't happen yet. So so now he's trying to solve world hunger. So then he goes to the so then he goes to what is it? I'm trying to find because I'm looking through here. He's actually so then he goes to
Take your time.
yeah. Uh so then he goes straight into the public office. He goes to the Capitol. That's where he goes. And then he talks publicly on wanting to solve world hunger. And it's always been a worldwide that's always been a worldwide concern. And so now he's trying to bring ripe crops to to those places where world hunger is a big problem there, where people that have a lack of food that he's trying to do. And there are some doubt with that, and there are some people who look at them with naive, and but there is actually approval. They actually do approve because they think Superman is the job to do that. But he does know that there are some expensive. They do whisper some of their hidden agendas just for that. They would just do that because we might as well find out about this once we get to Justice League Liberty and Justice, as that with Batman's conversation with the Martian Manhunter in that story, because we'll get to that a lot later. So then he goes to his hometown, and he gets a lot of the tractors to actually get the crops, and so just to get the food ready. And there are people who actually are more willing to share it to get the food ready in the boxes. Oh shoot, Dominic left. Oh, actually, yeah, he'll be right back. Don't worry. So now, yeah, there are people who are helping him, helping Superman prepare the food to get all of it ready, and so just for Superman's mission to start by solving world hunger. And so then, of course, Clark does report on this at the Daily Planet, and there are some people that actually look towards that for hope, but yet there are some people who think of that as a scam, or they think of Superman as more naive for this, because this is a real world issue. Even though this is a real world issue, there are some people who are a bit more cynical for that they don't think Superman would actually do this, or they believe Superman is more of a fairy tale, because that's always been a pretty common problem with some of the people in Metropolis, is that this is actually how Lex Luthor views Superman, is that because he has a very cynical outlook, he doesn't even believe so much in miracles, depending on his origins. But what's always stayed the same for Lex Luthor is having a very domineering father, so that he never had loving parents. He never had a loving father. Maybe his mother was loving at some point in time, or maybe she was domineering as her own husband is. But Luthor always had this very cynical outlook on life, especially on Superman. He has a very cynical look on Superman, and he hates him because he always foils his plans. He's always getting the attention instead of him. So now he's just trying to get Superman, like overthrow Superman, to that way he can get more of the attention. So then this is always the common thing about a DC superhero. Someone actually made a comment about this. I forgot who it was, and I forgot which video it was on, but about Superman and Lex Luthor, is that Superman is a god who is trying to be human, or actually a god who is raised as a human. Lex Luthor, on the other hand, is a human who's trying his damnedest to be a god, because he always has because he's always wanted to rule over Metropolis.
God complex.
Yeah, the God complex. And so then, no matter what, Superman is now on this mission, and he starts off by going to the desert. I think it's South America, I think. In the American Southwest. He brings the food there, and there's an old man there in the desert who's trying to bring a small armful of wood, but then suddenly he sees a shadow of the giant crates of the food where Superman comes down, and I like this picture here. It's in this part here where where he brings down the food, and yet he's actually looking down with the iconic Superman pose silhouetted, but yet the red cape is actually shining through thanks to the sun. But then this is actually one of the instances where Clark actually does Alex Ross makes Superman smile, is that he's always, because he salutes him farewell after giving him the food. And so then next he goes to Brazil, where um it actually looks so beautiful the way it's drawn, because it is beautiful on the outside, but then when he actually goes in then he actually goes into the city, it's it is a slum. There are kids are actually starving. They're actually using gutter water to bathe themselves. They use boxes as homes. It is a mess there. But then suddenly, so then Superman does bring the next box of food down, and all the kids uh look up to him, and they actually just now reach their arms out to Superman, almost a bit similar in like the one scene in Batman v Superman where Superman brings out a girl from a burning, collapsing building and just puts her down.
I had
But
that.
then yeah, that's just mostly there. That was just mostly there. It's just Jesus imagery, because for some reason Zack Snyder just always used Jesus imagery for Superman. Um. So then, oh yeah, another instance where Clark actually does smile on on this same page too, and so and he feels he's actually off to a better start. So then he brings another box of food down in in Europe, in a European country. So then people are a bit more concerned, because this is actually the part of Europe where um where it's already so war torn, it has been destroyed, because there are some in the background you actually see buildings and homes just crumbled, and it's cracked and it's ruined because it's been war torn, and so much blood is shed and so many people have been lost, because the look on their faces, they see they see Superman. they actually found they actually found some hope. But then there's actually a boy who actually says, um will he come back tomorrow, because they're searching for hope after so much has happened in this country. And as much as Superman would like to come again, but he just looks away, because he's got a mission to do, that being, of course, solving world hunger. And so then he then goes to another country, and then he brings the food there too. But then he actually goes to Africa, um or actually, yeah, no, not yet, actually, because in this part he's actually
Hmm.
he actually says this. It's in this part: I fly as fast as I can, crisscrossing the globe many times in order to keep my promises. I'd be foolish if I thought I could do this every day, nor should I try. I know at best this will provide only a day's relief for people who need so much, but perhaps that's what's needed to start the rest of the world thinking about permanent solution. So it's probably responding back to what the boy said, that he might come back tomorrow, but he oh, now Dom's back. There he goes. So now um he would promise that he would like to, as much as he would actually come back, to actually be there for the boy, because he's trying to be there for humanity as best he can. How? But he can't, because he's got a mission to do. Like, he's got work to do. There are more responsibilities to do that call for his time. And then he goes to Africa, and people are actually going there, and then he gives the food to the people there. But suddenly, then he actually hears a scream, not by people, but this time by animals, because they're running from a forest fire. They're actually running from trees that are set on fire, and the animals are just rushing to get away from that. But they're actually aiming towards the people, and so now he's trying to get the animals away as possible, as best he can. How? So then he tries to get everyone to safety as best he can. How to get them away from the animals, but at the same time he's trying to get them to calm down.
Right. It's
So now,
chaos.
Yep. And so then he does put out the fire that's set on the tree by using some of the water that was there by from a water sprout from a nearby lake in order to put out the fire. So now next he goes um to another country. I forgot. I don't think it actually says here, but and this time this is a place where martial law is actually happening here.
Hmm.
People are being held hostage there, and a bunch of army men are actually there. And the colonel, they see Superman that he's coming down with the food, and he's saying, and the colonel is actually saying, "Why don't you bring the food down to us, and we'll give them the food for you?" But Superman knows this type of thing. There are not a lot of people who are not a lot of people in the law who are actually
Right.
well suited or not yeah who
Not
have basically abused their
trustworthy.
power. Yeah, they're not trustworthy. So then he knows that look. He's actually putting a smile on that face, but that's actually a mask. The
Hmm.
colonel is actually has a smile on his face, but Clark knows it's a mask because this place is under martial law, and his men are aiming their guns at the people held hostage. So then so then he promises, I will bring down the food if you will let me do this alone. But um but the colonel is thinking of more excuses to try to convince Clark. He's trying to convince Clark, Superman, to actually hand over the food. Mostly, it's just an excuse to hand over the food and then try to force them to try to so then they can actually get it. And so take care, Dominic, because he sadly can't be there for a while. Um, because there's an event going on. But he will watch on the back watch. And so now Clark brings down the food by tossing it as quick as he can, but then um, suddenly the men start firing, but Superman um, deflects all the shots, and then he uses heat vision to actually melt the guns so that they won't fire anymore. And as soon as his job's done, he then flies away before he actually puts all the food down to the people to get the food possible, and then he flies away. So then he goes somewhere else to another country, and then this actually happens. Wherever I stop, I see hunger and poverty. Some is a result of circumstance. Too often, it's the product of man's cruelty to man. Oppression breeds a spiritual starvation all its own. In many places, for people furtively peek at me through cracked doors, never realizing I could see the desperate faces and shrunken bodies inside. So then but then suddenly skipping over, but I can't skipping over a few, actually skipping one line here, because he gives some of the food to the rats too, because then they are hungry too. Um, I can't overcome their generations of fear any more than I can force them to accept what I've brought. In other countries, I'm revealed I'm revealed as a political activist, a usurper, or a fraud. They don't want me they don't want me there regardless of what I'm bringing or whom it could help. They're so then while it's for a noble reason, why while he does have a noble reason why he's trying to send the food, but not a lot of people want him there because they view him as some sort of mouthpiece or political weapon um, just for them, and they don't even want that. They don't even want that because that will bring because they think that will be um, they will just basically turn into something that it's not because they're scared. Really, they're almost like scared of change, rather, pretty much. Um, at least. Um, but then, hmm? Oh, Wolf, about to say something?
Yeah, that's the foundation of what Superman represents. Is always the good qualities that mankind could always provide, and the quality that man can also carry as well. It's it's a very universal truth that we still have to face on a daily basis, where people give and those that are taking, and those that are willing to sacrifice at the cost of themselves to help others, to give others the strength to go on another day. You know,
Yeah,
it's something that Zack Snyder really missed the point of, especially with the Superman's rescuing people, rescuing people montage that he did in Batman v Superman. He um he always have Clark do this grimace whenever time he's saving the world, or at
yeah,
least he's got this frown. It
yeah.
should be
Because
a
he's always drawing, or no, not always drawing. He's always putting Superman in a more serious light because he's always so gloomy
he should
instead of being
be
more hopeful.
he should be firm. He should be at least prideful in what he's doing. He should be at least joyous. You know, that's
Yeah,
what makes that's why Christopher Reeve is the template for Superman that people needs to always follow.
absolutely. Yeah, especially when you're playing a superhero, pretty much. Well, you don't have to carry the same responsibility as like the Christopher Reeves level did when he was playing Superman. But when you're playing a hero, you got to hold up to that responsibility because you are playing a hero. In fact, yeah, in fact, Robert Downey Jr. even knows about this when playing Iron Man. Because we all know Robert Downey Jr. has done a lot of stuff that's been going on. He's gone to prison once, but then when he's Iron Man, he now actually lives up to the responsibility of being much of a hero as that responsibility of playing a hero since he got the role as playing Iron Man, and Iron Man is an inspiration. Um, Even though he's a very cathartic character, a very cathartic motivational hero in the Marvel universe, but he does carry that responsibility for this because Tony carries responsibility for himself, and that's what Robert Downey Jr. um carries that responsibility to play of playing Iron Man. He carries that responsibility because a lot of people now know him as as Iron Man, thanks to that.
He's got to keep his nose clean now.
Oh yeah,
Not that it's a bad thing.
yeah. And so now, anyways, so so back to, so then now Superman goes to another country. Um, but then suddenly, as he delivers the food, people are just they're not reaching out like a hopeful hand, like they're actually like in a search for hope, like it did in the last few pages where that happened when he first started. But this time, it's almost like they're just like clawing. They're desperate. They're reaching out so hard, so much. They're pretty much clawing that. And to a real person, that would pretty much damage their skin. That would pretty much claw them, almost like a zombie horde is trying to reach out to them. But thankfully, due to Clark's invulnerability, that didn't happen. So then he tried to look for a way out. So then he goes through a hole, spins around, goes through a hole, and looks for an easy way out. And then he goes back up and goes for another way out as an easy exit to get out. So that and they didn't even see him, but they got the food anyway. But then and then even then they're pretty much gonna be so desperate just to get the food anyway because they are so desperate. They're so desperate. They're fighting over it, even though we don't actually see it. But they're getting the food anyway. And then suddenly we reach to the final act of the chapter of this story, and then things start falling apart. Um, soldiers then see the government is actually here. It's late in the day. The more I see, the more I feel I have just started. The government of one country that needs me most refuses to allow me to land. I continue even though the leaders announce that the welfare of their people is not my concern. Furthermore, they warn they warn that my instruction. Hold on, let me read through this again. I continue even though the leaders announce that the welfare of their people is not my concern. Furthermore, they warn that my intrusion into their airspace will constitute an act of war. I hear the missile just before I see it. Given the weight that I am carrying, there's no way I can dodge it in time because he's carrying the food in a cargo ship. So, so now there is a flash of heat, a roar of noise, and the fury of an angry storm seems to stab through me. Then I become aware of another sensation, the harsh sting of poison. So then they pretty much launched. I think it was launched from a tank or actually launched from just from a nuke. I think
Mm,
because they said it's a toxic smell because it's a poison gas now. So then
hmm.
so then the cargo ship's destroyed. So then before the gas could even reach, Superman creates a tornado to vaporize the gas so that it would not reach others, so that it would spread, so that others would not die from the gas. But
Good.
huh?
Good.
So then, but the downside, the cargo ship is ruined, and so is the food. And Superman's mission to solve world hunger has failed. And he does feel that disappointment. He actually feels the food in his hands. It's all ruined. It's covered in ash. It's now covered in poison. And then he actually feels that disappointment. And then he goes to his apartment and then he still remembers the feeling of the ruined food in his hands. And then there are there are news articles, and I think including the Daily Planet, or just a bunch of news articles that are saying that says here, I hear the voices of those I've helped praising me for trying. I see headlines commenting on the effects, good and bad, of my mission. And most of all, I feel the disappointment of millions who still look skyward, yet know in their hearts I won't be coming. I did truly think I would. Did I truly think I would succeed? Knowing what I do of human nature, why would I believe everyone would willingly accept that I? Why would willing? Why would? Why would everyone? Why actually? Knowing what I do of human nature, why would I believe everyone would willingly accept what I have to give? Then again, maybe I wasn't giving the right gift because he's in his chair too. Um, still has the Clark Kent glasses on. He still has the overshirt on, like when he's still Clark Kent. He still has like the white overshirt that he wears before
Right.
putting the blazer on. But yet he actually has that open because he's still wearing the Superman suit because he can't help but feel the disappointment in that. He doesn't act in a rage. He's just disappointed. Like he just sits there. He's just sitting there alone, knowing that, well, you tried, but ultimately he wanted to see the people's faces, to have hope. That's all he ever wanted for humanity. In spite of all the powers that he has, he just wants to help others. That's all he ever wants. But then he failed that mission to solve world hunger. But then suddenly, he looks at the photo of his father that's actually there on the table, and then he looks at it, and then it says, then goes to here. Actually, wait. So then he's actually trying to, actually, he goes down around flying in Metropolis, just mostly just for fresh air. Then he does report on it a lot later when he's Clark Kent at the Daily Planet, and then everyone's art reading the Daily Planet newspapers, seeing that Superman's mission to solving world hunger had failed, even though they give him kudos for trying. But then again, there are some people who still looked at it as pretty much a scam anyway, since there are some cases of people who are very cynical that don't believe in Superman, like Lex Luthor does. Like, he doesn't believe in miracles at all, but yet he hates Superman. So then we go to this part here where we see this image where we see Superman flying on the Earth, but yet there's actually people looking. They're actually looking straight at us, like they're still like looking for hope, like looking at Superman for hope. And then it says this: the welfare of Earth. Or wait, no. It's actually in a quote from the papers. It actually says here. It starts here. I tried to relieve world hunger, but I encountered heartbreaking poverty not only in the slums and wastelands of the world, but within selfish men's souls. I know that I now see that taking on this responsibility was too ambitious for one man, even a Superman. With the welfare of Earth and all its people will always be my primary concern. But if there is a solution to the problem of hunger, it must be one that comes from the compassionate heart of man and extends outward towards his fellow man. There is an old saying: give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach him to fish, teach him to fish and he eats for a lifetime. That simple message asks humankind to nurture with knowledge, to reach out to those in need and
Sorry for
inspire
coughing.
others. You'll be okay. To reach out to those in need and inspire others to do the same. That is life's greatest necessity and its most precious gift. I ask everyone to share what they have with those who need it. Their knowledge, their time, their generosity, especially with the young, for on them rests our future and all hope of a true peace on earth. So yes, this is basically now the answer of this question of when Dini and Ross were actually making the story by asking one question. If Superman were real, would he solve all the world's problems? And we see this here. No, even though he has all the power in the world to do it, and yeah, there are some that are very serious issues. He can't be there all at once,
Yep.
and world hunger is a big issue. And as we see, he tries that, but even then, he won't solve that because he can't be there all at once. He knows it, but he tries as best he can, as best as humanly possible, to do this. But because that's all he ever wants to do. But unfortunately, he couldn't, because if a Superman were to just like solve all the world's problems and that's just what he's there for, instead of just giving hope, to be an aspiration to look up to, always have hope and looking towards the future, he can't always solve a world's problems. He's not a machine. He is a man. He is human.
That's correct.
And so then the comic ends with this, where he actually goes back to he actually goes to a farm. It's probably actually a field trip where kids are actually looking at an animal farm. And so then Clark actually comes in with a bag full of seeds, and then it mimics the beginning of the story and actually says this: When I once feel again when I once again feel the warm spring wind in my hair, I make it a point to follow my own advice. Patiently and gently, I share with others the way to scatter the seeds a few at a time, evenly between the rows, so that each one will have enough space. I tell them not every seed will make it, but all of them deserve a chance to grow. And so ends the story of Superman Peace on Earth. So then, Wolf, what did you think?
I didn't get that book from my collection.
Oh, you really do. It is. I actually got this on Amazon. Actually, it was back when I was still looking for some DC comics to actually read. Actually to read up on DC superheroes, because I actually have this on Wonder Woman Spirit of Truth right here,
Hmm.
which we will, because I found this at a Barnes and Noble where I found this. But the funny thing is, it is in this story because this is part of the Justice League World's Greatest Superheroes line. So then, so then I already have that story, but yet it's already part of it. That story is also contained here in this anthology.
Oh,
But
nice.
but still, because at least I still got at least some all those stories, this anthology that I still wanted to look for. But
Hmm.
um so yeah, Superman Peace on Earth. I It is actually one of my favorite Superman stories. I wouldn't rank it as my it is my personal favorite Superman story. I wouldn't actually rank it as my number one. That because we will that goes to Superman for All Seasons, because that's another story of the iconic Superman. But so yeah, Superman Peace on Earth, it is a fantastic story. It actually has a really good actually has a really good message about this too, concerning about Superman's character.
Hmm.
Um where people would say, "Oh, Superman can actually solve all the world's problems, right?" No, because if he can't be there all at once. He's only just a man. Because if he were to solve all the world's problems, and just for that, instead of giving hope, he'd just be more machine, not a man. I already seen this before, and I've already said this before, actually. So then, because Superman is meant to be this I this idea of an aspirational hero, and Superman has um always compared to many um savior figures in legends. Like, he's more commonly associated with Moses. He's not Jesus, Zack
Mm-hmm.
Snyder. Uh, um, but he's more of like a Moses type, or what was it, Saint Jude? Um, where he actually puts the symbol on his chest as a symbol of hope, because that's also mimics Superman because of the S shield on his chest, because that's a symbol of hope too. Because even then, Man of Steel got that right of why he wears that, but apparently he can't even get that right as an integral part of Superman for some reason.
Sure can't.
um, but yeah, anything else you like to say? Is there any other things you like to say about the story?
Nothing, actually. Nothing that comes to mind. No,
Hmm. Okay then.
unfortunately.
Well, it's all right. But that actually about does it here. Um, well,
Hmm.
and that actually about does it here. That concludes Superman Peace on Earth. And I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you saw, click like, subscribe, and share with your family and friends. And make sure you ring that notification bell. That way you get notified of our latest videos. Go to Wolf 10 Media's channel if you haven't subscribed already. Go subscribe to me if you haven't already. And next week we will continue Justice League World's Greatest Superheroes. This time covering Batman: War on Crime, my personal favorite Batman story.
Mm.
Um, but on March 17th, we will do the Final Fantasy 15 rewrite. Then a week after that will be episode 3 of Final Fantasy Rules covering the Red Mage class. And a week before my birthday will be another episode of Comic Studies, which will be Kingdom Come. So be sure you stay tuned for that. Once
Maybe
again,
something
thank
I
you.
could talk to you about.
That'd actually be fun. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching. This is Final Fantasy Fan 12 signing off. And remember, may the light forever shine upon us.